خدا نے مجھ کو دیا تیرے دعاؤں سے، ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ملا جو بھی ملا تیرے دعاؤں سے، ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، جہاں جہاں بھی گیا دل جانے لگے، جہاں جہاں بھی گیا دل جانے لگے، یہ ہے تیرا میرا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، تیری دعاؤں سے، ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، ماں کی دعا جنت کی ماں کی دعا جنت کی جنت کی جنت کی یہ کامیابیاں شوش قدم پہ ملی، یہ کامیابیاں شوش قدم پہ ملی، نصیب ایسا ملا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، تیری دعاؤں سے، ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، طواف میں کیا طواف میں کیا جو میرا کیا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، تیری دعاؤں سے، ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، ماں تیری دعاؤں سے، مجھے گرانے پہ حاسد مجھے گرانے پہ حاسد
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Marisburg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. My name is Yunus, and I'll be in your company for the next 2 hours. I'll be interviewing our guest shortly. Today, the date is the 23rd of Rajab 1446. Equivalent to the English date of 22nd January 2025. On today's show, we're going to do an update on the ceasefire in Gaza, the terms of the agreement. Obviously, there's been mixed reactions to the ceasefire agreement. I'm going to go through the agreement briefly, and a lot of news is coming through that Israel has violated already the terms of the agreement. And we will have a guest on air, Lubna Nadvi, shortly to discuss the situation in Gaza. We will later on in the program discuss an update on the plan for eThekwini to improve service delivery for 2025. With me live in the studio, I have Councillor Ernest Smith from Ward 31. He has Ward 27. My secretary obviously always makes a mistake and types Ward 31. And I hope he can give us some good news, or maybe he's a bearer of bad news, but I'll catch him out somewhere along the line. But before we introduce our guests later on in the program, our economist Hassan Motala, I'd like to sort of go through the terms of the agreement of the ceasefire so that we can quite get a picture of what was agreed upon and what is happening on the ground. So in brief, the agreement was around the complete withdrawal towards the border from all areas of the Gaza Strip, travel of the wounded for treatment abroad. 608 trucks are being brought in daily as part of a humanitarian protocol sponsored by the state of Qatar, bringing in 200,000 tents and 60,000 caravans for urgent shelter. Prisoner exchange, release of 1,000 prisoners from the Gaza Strip and hundreds of prisoners sentenced to life imprisonment and high sentences, clearing the occupation prisons of all women and children under 19 years old, the return of all displaced persons to the areas of residence and freedom of movement throughout the Gaza Strip, absence of flights from the airspace of the sector for 8 to 10 hours daily, rehabilitating all hospitals, introducing field hospitals, medical and surgical teams to the sector. The first stage will last 6 weeks in exchange for the delivery of 33 Israeli prisoners, some alive and some dead, and this will be completed in the second and third stages to negotiate the remaining 60 prisoners. On the seventh day, the displaced people from southern Gaza will return to the north without inspection. After the occupation withdraws from Rashid Street to the depth of Netzarim access, and the people of Gaza will have freedom of movement north and south of Gaza via Rashid Street. On the 22nd day, the occupation will withdraw from the entire Netzarim access to the east of Salah ad-Din Street, and people will have freedom of movement. Now, these were some of the important terms of the agreement. However, it's been reported recently that Israeli gunboats have shelled towards the coast of Gaza City in violation of the terms of the ceasefire. This is a report from colleagues in the Al Jazeera Arabic report. So I'm going to play a clip of a report that's come through today on what's happening on the ground, which clearly shows the manner in which Israel is responding to the ceasefire agreement. Whether the instructions are going to the soldiers or not, I'm not sure, but it's a clear violation of the terms of the ceasefire agreement. So I'll catch a listen to the clip.
Assalamu alaikum. I come to you with an emergency report from Jenin refugee camp. I've been sent the following information and videos from a contact inside Jenin camp, where the IOF have invaded and are attacking the civilian population at will. There have been at least 35 injuries. 2 people have been killed that we know of so far. One is Ahmad Nimir Shaib, who was shot dead on his way to work whilst driving his car. The other is Ab al-Wahab al-Sadi, who has been executed by a sniper whilst walking along the streets. Footage of this man having been shot in the stomach. We do not know if he survived. Also someone else who's been dragged off the street who appears to have been shot as well. We do not know if either of these people are alive. The attack has included drones and Apache helicopters. People are being shot at randomly on the street. This footage, courtesy of Al Arabi TV, shows someone who's been shot in the inner thigh, and then the IOF coming to stop him getting help. A ceasefire has been called, yet the IOF are attacking the Palestinian civilians in breach of the ceasefire. Our government needs to speak up. The Trump administration needs to speak up. Action needs to be taken now. This is ongoing. Please share far and wide. Thank you.
So there was a clip reported recently. I've got Dr. Lubna Nadvi, a political scientist and analyst based at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And I wanted to react to the ceasefire agreement and at the same time comment on the violations that are currently taking place. Dr. Lubna Nadvi, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International.
Wa alaikum salam, and Jazakallah for having me on your program.
Thank you for joining us, Lubna. And I thought, because you're part of the KZN PSF, that you would be following this ceasefire agreement closely, the terms of the agreement which I've just ran through, and the reaction in the last few days on the ceasefire, that there's violations. Perhaps you want to comment briefly on the ceasefire in the first instant and the violations that are taking place.
Well, people were following the development of the ceasefire or the announcement of the ceasefire on the 15th of January, and that it would come into effect on the Sunday, the 19th. But we know that just within 24 hours of the announcement, the Israeli occupation forces had carried out an attack in Gaza, killing just over 100 people. And so they can't be trusted. We knew that they would violate, the conditions even before the ceasefire came into effect. And of course, on Sunday, we know that there was a release of 3 hostages from the Gaza Strip handed over to Israel, and about 90 Palestinians that were housed in Israeli jails handed over back to the Palestinians and their families in the West Bank. So that part of the ceasefire agreement has taken place. But since then, we've also had reports, as you just also played, that there's been attacks in Jenin in the West Bank. So what seems to be happening is that while there's a so-called ceasefire supposed to be unfolding in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli forces have now focused their attention back on West Bank to attack Palestinians on that end. And so this is basically what's unfolding. And, they have violated the ceasefire. There's no doubt about that. They had attacked Palestinians before the ceasefire came into effect. And obviously now that it is supposed to be in effect and being implemented. And, the gentleman in the report that you just played talks about we need to get Trump to speak up about it, and their government as well, which I assume is the British government. These governments really have no real sort of care for the Palestinian people. Their citizens do, because their citizens have been taking to the streets for months and months, asking for a ceasefire, asking for an end to the occupation. But the American and British governments cannot be trusted to be honest brokers in this process. So what needs to happen is that governments like South Africa, Ireland, Venezuela, and many others who have spoken up in support of the Palestinians, and those at the United Nations who are in strong support of Palestine, need to basically come together and, take action that is going to force Israel to cease its belligerence, its actions. And really the only way that this can happen is that an armed UN presence is sort of taken into the Gaza and West Bank areas to stop the Israelis from basically continuing with their military attacks. Because when Hamas tries to defend the Palestinian people through armed resistance, they are called terrorists. And civilians are just being killed mercilessly. So in order for there to be a response to the military attacks by Israel, the international community has to step in with a military, option.
Lubna, the parties involved in the ceasefire agreement, the USA, Qatar, perhaps the UK, Israel, represented by whoever, when this agreement was signed, wasn't or isn't there repercussions that if there's a violation on either side, there would be repercussions?
Well, yes. Obviously, the brokers, are hoping that both parties will keep their part of the agreement. And Israel has violated its part already. But Israel has never faced any repercussions. Even if the brokers say there will be repercussions, what repercussions are there going to be? Are they going to sanction the Israeli government? Are they going to send a military army to stop the Israeli defense or occupation forces? So really, the issue of repercussions is not really something that we can see unfolding. But basically what the repercussions refer to is that there would be stronger pressure placed on both parties to make sure that they maintain their part of the agreement. But we've seen in 76 years that Israel can mercilessly bomb both the Gaza Strip and kill people in the West Bank. It never faces any repercussions from the international world community.
So the question that arises, Lubna, is can this agreement be relied upon or trusted given the nature in which these ceasefires are existing? On the one side, you have an agreement in principle and prisoners are being released on both sides. And here you get, and we're not sure these, elements that are involved in sort of these attacks, whether they're not listening to the Israeli government and just causing chaos in the ceasefire agreement. Well,
the Israeli occupation forces that is carrying out these attacks in Jenin clearly knows what is going on in Gaza. So they would be acting on instruction from either their military commanders or their government. So it's not as if they're acting without knowing what's happening or getting instructions. This is the modus operandi of the Israeli army. It's always been that way. So they basically are going to continue with this behavior because the Israeli army has basically been defeated in the Gaza Strip. They said they were going to destroy Hamas. They haven't been able to do that. So they have to find a way to, try and demean the Palestinians further by attacking them in the other areas where the Palestinians reside. And so whether the ceasefire will hold in terms of the release of the remaining prisoners and hostages, only time will tell. On Saturday, there's supposed to be a further release of, I think, about 4 hostages from the Gaza Strip transferred over to Israel. And we'll see how that unfolds. There's supposed to be a 6-week period over which these transfers of hostages and Palestinian prisoners is supposed to take place. So we're seeing, events unfold both in the Gaza Strip and West Bank, which do not bode well for the long-term implementation of the ceasefire. And as we know in the Palestinian-Israeli situation, events happen at a sort of very fast pace, and we need to monitor it. What's happening in Jenin is completely unacceptable, and the brokers of the ceasefire have to step in and hold the Israeli government accountable for what they are doing in Jenin. Yes.
Have the brokers stepped in with the kind of reaction that's taking place by the IOF? Because I'm not sure whether these are disgruntled members of the IOF that are doing it on their own free will and trying to sabotage the ceasefire agreement.
Well, what we know is that there were settlers on the West Bank side that were taking to the streets and burning Palestinians' cars and, their property. So there was that component. But clearly, if you look at the visuals in the images that are coming through, you can see that these are Israeli occupation forces. So, if there are a few disgruntled individuals doing it on their own, their commanders and their superiors have to take responsibility. But I'm pretty sure that they have been instructed to carry out this violence, because there are snipers that are effectively shooting people randomly. And Israeli soldiers usually don't just simply go and act, without getting instructions from their superiors. So effectively, we can see that there has to be some chain of command in terms of what is unfolding in Jenin. But I think that the Israeli army is yet to issue some kind of statement regarding what's happening in Jenin. As for whether the ceasefire brokers have stepped in, we have not seen any statements from the Qatari government or the Egyptian government. The only thing that we have seen from Trump is his comments that he doesn't think that the ceasefire will hold. And this is, I think, on the first day of, his being in the White House. So that's where it's at, and things are happening at a very fast pace.
So I'm not sure whether, this hypocritical or coward acts that are taking place, there's a lot of terms and conditions to the agreement, which I just went through. X number of trucks, 600 trucks or whatever have to come in every day for aid, and there's a whole lot of other issues. And one begins to question whether, it's a convenient agreement to get the Israeli prisoners out and then they start the action again, to call a bluff. And how does Hamas react to the situation? Are they cautious? Do they believe that the ceasefire will hold? Do they have to be, prepared for any reaction?
Well, I think the Hamas entity, both the Hamas political party and its armed brigade, are very familiar with the tactics of the Israeli regime. So they have to be prepared for virtually anything that unfolds. We have seen the humanitarian aid trucks going into Gaza Strip. So that part of the ceasefire agreement has been taking place. And I think that what we need to look for is for how Hamas is going to now respond. I don't think that they will immediately respond with rockets or anything of the sort. I think that they have been very restrained in terms of how they have acted. In fact, in the exchange of the 3 hostages, they, were doing it quite openly in the middle of the Gaza Strip with the presence of the armed brigade, the Al-Qassam brigade soldiers, or rather the armed personnel. And effectively, Hamas is as strong as it's been, always within the Gaza Strip. So the other components of the ceasefire will unfold, I suppose, as they are meant to. So we will have to wait and see how it's going to take place in the coming days. With regard to the reactions from the brokers and the sort of Hamas political party or their structures, we will have to wait and see. But we've not actually seen any sort of statements come out as yet. This video of the attack in Jenin has just come out, and I think they are basically looking at what's going on and will issue statements as soon as possible.
I think we'll have to sort of wait for some time to check whether the rehabilitation of hospitals, introducing field hospitals, medical surgical teams, bringing in 200,000 tents and other sort of issues, whether they're taking place, we'll have to wait and see over time. So I'm sure let's monitor the situation, and we make du'as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it possible for the occupants to have some kind of relief, because they were full of celebrations when they felt that, enough is enough. So we make du'as that, the parties comply with the terms of the agreement, and let's monitor the situation going forward, Lubna.
No, absolutely. I think that the Hamas group has effectively kept its side of the bargain, but it is always hampered and constrained by the actions of the Israeli regime and the occupation forces. So it can't control what's happening in the West Bank. Hamas can only respond to and manage what's happening, in the Gaza Strip. Although it has in the past taken strong positions when Palestinians in the West Bank have been hurt or attacked in any way. But they have to take care of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip for now. Regarding the reconstruction component, the hospitals, the field hospitals and so on, that process is supposed to happen sort of in the last phase of the ceasefire. So for now, it's the aid going into the strip and other aspects like, for example, people being able to return to their homes in the north of Gaza, being able to move freely, and slow return of life to what it used to be before the 7th of October, even though they were under siege at that time. But at least they were able to send their children to school, walk to the shops to buy basic supplies, and so on. So yes, we'll have to monitor. Gaza has been totally destroyed. It is basically a, desolate and completely destroyed zone. So it has to be rebuilt. There are parts where there are buildings still standing. Some very basic infrastructure is still there. but it has to be rebuilt and to be totally reconstructed.
Shukran,
But we
Lubna.
pray that all will go well.
Yes. Shukran for giving us some valuable information on the ceasefire agreement and some comments with your last. We make du'as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives hidayah to everyone to comply so that the people of Palestine have some degree of peace so they can move forward in their lives. Shukran,
Inshallah.
Lubna, and keep up the good work, and monitor the situation on the Palestinian issue. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much. Wa alaikum assalam.
That was Dr. Lubna Nadvi, a political scientist and analyst based at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. She spoke briefly on the ceasefire agreement, some of the issues of concern, and we'll monitor the situation closely. On that note, we'll take a break for the Isha Azan, and inshallah we'll continue after the Isha Namaz.
This Azan is sponsored for the Isale Sawab of Marhum Muhammad Farooq Latib and all Marhumin. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them the highest abode in Jannah. Ameen.
أعزائي المستمعين، حان الآن موعد أذان العشاء لمدينة دربن وما حولها.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته وارزقنا شفاعته يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
This dua brought to you by Simplex Radio, South Africa's leading retailer of appliances, car sound and home theater systems.
These surahs after Azan are brought to you by Amina's Wonder Spice and Wonder Dates, 9 Peters Road, Springfield, Durban.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس.
This salah is proudly brought to you by Khan's Chemical Industry. May this salah enlighten your soul and bring about endless blessings throughout your day. This salah was proudly brought to you by Khan's Chemical Industry. May this salah enlighten your soul and bring about endless blessings throughout your day.
Having a clean, comfortable home is every homeowner's pride. That's why Khan's Chemicals have developed and manufactured prime yet affordable quality household brands Starlight, Miracle Mum, Exterminate, and Angie to care for your home and family. With a wide range of fabric softeners, dishwashing liquids, bleachers, and all-purpose cleaners, pine gels, bubble baths, and much more, Khan's Chemicals ensures your home remains our #1 priority. For sales and other inquiries, call 011 933 4021. Khan's Chemicals, cleaning your home the way you want.
Radio Al-Ansar, Durban, 90.4 FM. Peter Maritzburg, 105.6 FM.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Piemberg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news break, before the Isha Azan break, we chatted briefly to Lubna Nadvi, KZN PSF, and she gave us an update on the ceasefire in Gaza. There were mixed reactions on the ceasefire. Concerns were raised about IOF's attack in Jenin, etc. But we make duas that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for the people of Gaza, and that to some degree this ceasefire perpetuates, and the powers of be intervene against Israel's hypocritical manner of dealing with the ceasefire agreement. But everything is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we should continue with our duas. For the next 6 to 7 minutes, we just want to have a brief chat on our second subject for this evening, which we'll continue also later on after the news break. But I thought let's just give an appetizer. I have with me live in the studio Councillor Ernest from Ward 27. He's not afraid of having a go at his own municipality, who are still battling and grappling with service delivery. And last week at our show, we had, the Secretary General of COSATU as well as the Secretary General of Sanco, and they were giving us an overview on government's commitment to improve service delivery. We chatted briefly on the comments made on the January 8th statement in Khayelitsha, by President Cyril Ramaphosa, who mentioned that he wants the ANC, who is the ruling party in the GNU, to really reorganize itself, to reconfigure their moves, etc., and to really decide, what kind of discipline they have to clamp down on indiscipline in the ANC. But more important is when, the residents of the different wards in eThekwini are perpetually complaining about the state of service delivery. And, one of the major issues is the lack of road maintenance and rehabilitation. And in virtually every road in and around the Centrum area and in the urban and suburbs of eThekwini, there are massive potholes, and with the rain, it's getting even worse. And people have to drive like, maniacs to really avoid these potholes. And they're getting so huge that if you knock these potholes at high speed, you're certainly there to crack your rim or to damage your tires. And there's a laborious process to even submit a claim to the municipality to recover the cost of replacing the rims as well as the tires, which goes into thousands of rands. And, the sheer frustration on the part of, the residents that drive around, and many of them, I say, we give up, we're tired. And they ask the question that, is anybody there to work in the municipality from the city manager downwards? And people are frustrated, and some ratepayer organizations are actually saying, should we be paying our rates anymore? Should we be paying for our electricity and water bills? Because we're getting no service delivery. And if you talk about the big stuff, lack of infrastructure, it's even worse. So for a few minutes, I just want to build up the argument related to, does eThekwini have a plan to improve service delivery? And I want to welcome Councillor Ernest Smith, Ward 27. Councillor is ever willing to join us in the program. Councillor Smith, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus once again.
Wa alaikum salam, Jazakallah for having me on again. I do appreciate
Now, I know off the air, while the Azan break was taking place and the Isha break, you were talking about this public meeting you had with some of the housing officials, and you down my alley because, I spent a lot of time there, and I was just doing some corrections when you were telling me what was being said, which is typical of the officials that are there, exactly whether they know what they're talking about. And just as well, I don't attend these meetings because I'll just have to correct all the time without being proud in any way, but a lot of stuff they don't know. So perhaps you just, for the next 2 to 3 minutes, just give us a bit of an indicator that is there really a plan to improve service delivery, or are they still grappling, or there are serious problems, so that after the news break we'll tackle it headlong.
To put that in a nutshell, the municipality has gotten to the point where it doesn't know whether it's coming or going. There are still officials who want to try and do stuff, who want to try and help people. I'm not going to discredit them, but you either find them on the more senior end. Let me put this side. You find them on the more senior end of their careers in the municipality, or you have new guys who have partially been mentored. But the reality of it is, over the years, let's call it the last 15 years, we've lost a lot of skill and we haven't recapacitated them. And you've also got people who've, and I'm going to use your phrase here, they've come in through the back door. However they've come in, whether it's through the political channels, the political and personal channels, there are always accusations of people how they got into posts that they aren't qualified for. And there are often times when I say to people, I actually would like, if I had the majority, we would be calling for a skills audit to see if you are capable of doing the job. Because the reality of it is, you need skills to plan. You need effective planning to tackle and budget appropriately to deal with issues like infrastructure, and that goes across water, electricity, roads, the whole lot. So do they have the skills? Partially. But you also have to ask the question, is there political will to get it fixed? Because all too often you hear of people who, especially the plumbers who fix it and stuff, a lot of the plumbers complain that, it's connected plumbers from whether it's ANC or whoever it is now, they are the ones who actually get assigned more than the rotational roster that's being given out. So some people are treating it as a cash cow. Other people are just saying it's a job. I get paid to be here, 8 to 5, and once it hits 4:30, I'm heading out the door. So we have to redevelop in the municipality a culture of why you were employed. Yes, it's a job, but in the same breath, you don't join the municipality for its wonderful paycheck. I mean, yes, government can be quite generous in what position you are, but the reality is, when you're employed by spheres of government, you are actually now working for the betterment of everyone, not just yourself and the paycheck and the family.
So, Ernest, what we're going to do is we're going to go for the news break, and then we're going to do a quick analysis after the news break on the political will to improve service delivery. Does the municipality have the budgets? Do they have a plan to really understand what service delivery is all about? And what are the expectations from the residents and the ratepayers? So we'll unpack that after the news break.
Sure.
So let's break for the 9 o'clock news, and inshallah we'll have a vibrant discussion after the news break.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News.
Making news this hour, the 22nd of January, the news from Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM. Amazulu commemorate historical battle, America Monina. Local media says King Misuzulu Velitini is expected to give an address at the Battle of Isandwana commemoration Motu, Northern KwaZulu-Natal. The commemoration is observed on Wednesday, 22nd January, which is today, aligning with a significant moment in history. According to history books, the date is the same day when the Amazulu defeated the British in Isandwana on the 22nd of January, 1879. This year's commemoration is dominated by a royal drama, including the pending royal wedding to the Queen by Nomza Mumieni. More news. Mark Harvey has been sentenced to 2 life terms for murder of his girlfriend Mariska David and a friend Zakia Raymond. Harvey was sentenced to a further 7 years for arson and 5 years for housebreaking. He doused the 2 women in petrol and set them alight in February last year. Zakia Raymond died 7 days after the attack, while Mariska David died at the operating table. Sentences will run concurrently. The judge had this to say.
The court still doesn't know why you committed this monstrous act, because I am at a loss to describe your actions. It's certainly not humane. It's not compassionate. To set another human being on fire, I can only describe as putting yourself. The sentence that you would serve, sir, the 2 life sentences obviously run concurrently, as well as the counts 3 and 4 will run concurrently. So, in essence, given what lives, you're convicted for 2 offenses, 2 life sentences, but you had 1.
Staying with that story, Faisal Raymond, Zakia's father, has this to say.
Finally, it's come to an end. Finally, the families can find some closure, pick up the pieces and carry out our lives, knowing that you'll be sitting up behind bars for a very long time. And hopefully, you will never see daylight again. The judge's ruling on this whole matter, I think, was spot on. Didn't delay it, made his findings, gave his verdict, and yeah, it's now just a matter of picking up the pieces, getting our lives back together, being there for Zakia's children now.
More news. The Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, have filed a criminal case against Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean McPherson, accusing him of corruption. The party alleges McPherson is misusing state institutions to benefit what it says is white minority capital. EFF's Secretary General Marshall Dlamini claims that in December, McPherson emailed a program manager at the Independent Development Trust IDT to pay a contractor. Dlamini says the minister has violated national treasury regulations. Speaking outside Pretoria Central Police Station, Dlamini said EFF is calling for an investigation into McPherson's alleged interference. More news. Foreign prisoners outnumber local inmates at some correctional services. That's according to local media. This has raised concern in Parliament's Correctional Services Portfolio Committee. Chairperson Anthea Ramulabeng says it is increasing the burden on South African prisons. Reporters over 22,500 foreign nationals are filling correctional centers. International story. Protesters gather outside the U.S. consulate in Sydney, calling for an immediate end to the U.S. military aid to Israel, carrying signs reading "Stop Arming, Genocide," and chanting for a free Palestine. They criticized the role of American foreign policy in supporting what they described as violence and oppression against Palestinians. The demonstrators also expressed outrage at Donald Trump's close alliance with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, labeling their partnership as one that enables the systematic destruction of Palestinian lives and rights. Protesters also focused on Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, accusing him of succumbing to US influence by supporting the Australian-American military alliance. Your weather, it's 24 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. King Mrs. Lucas Wellington is expected to give an address at the Battle of Isandwana commemoration in Wontu, northern KwaZulu-Natal. That's
You've spent all that time, effort, and energy putting together an incredible business. Now, you need to tell people about your business. Advertising and marketing, it's what we do. Listen to this.
Absolutely amazing. It's been my first experience working with a radio station. So you don't actually know what to expect. And you also feel like, you're just going to be a number. But at Radio Al-Ansar, I was just not a number. I think the support that we've got has been amazing. You guys have been absolutely amazing. You guys have opened doors for us that a couple of months ago, I wouldn't have thought possible. I think the support for me has been the greatest. It's so widespread because you guys are on YouTube Live, Facebook Live. It's not just radio based. We've got people in Johannesburg listening to you guys. So it's so widespread. We're getting that marketing.
Get in touch with our sales department on 031-208-1601. Speak directly to your target audience.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Wonder Dates, your one-stop shop for all your dates, nuts, dried fruit, spices, biltong, biscuits, sweets, chocolates, Islamic lifestyle goodies, and so much more. Wonder Dates is known to import unique and unusual products from around the world. So, if you're looking for something nutty, nibbly, chewy, munchy, sweet, sour, or savory, make a date with Wonder Dates. Visit us at 9 Peter Road, Springfield, Durban, or call on us on 031 577 7722 or shop online at www.wonderdates.online. Wonder Dates, bringing the freshness of the farm into your home.
Would you like to give Sadaqah 365 days a year? You can with the Al-Imdad Foundation's Daily Sadaqah program. Donate as little as R1 a day for a month for each member of your family, up to any specified amount, and receive monthly feedback on where your contributions have made a difference. Visit alimdad.com and download your Daily Sadaqah debit order form or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Guess what, Durban? No, wait. Guess what, Westville? The Village Market is back, and this time we're taking it to the evening. Join us on Saturday, January 25th from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. at 123 Jan Hofmeer Road, right opposite Westville Boys High and next to the Sufi Masjid. Indulge in mouth-watering eats, enjoy horseback riding, kids entertainment, and shop till you drop. Whether it's an early dinner or late supper, there's something for everyone. The Saturday night Village Market, your family's evening out. See you there.
They convinced the world to believe that terrorists look like beards and thobes. Now, as the facade cracks, one martyr after another, the world sees through the broken windows and now knows the true face of terrorism. It wears suits and ties and smiles behind lies.
اللهم احفظ المسجد الأقصى من اليهود الحاقدين اللهم أعد المسجد الأقصى إلى رحاب المسلمين اللهم وطهر المسجد الأقصى من اليهود الغاصبين اللهم عليك بهم فإنهم لا يعجزونك يا قوي يا متين اللهم منزل الكتاب مجري السحاب هازم الأحزاب سريع الحساب اهزم اليهود وزلزلهم يا قوي يا عزيز.
This segment is brought to you by Kenfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Kenfield Auto.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين.
Car won't start?
Kenfield Auto.
Noisy brakes?
Kenfield Auto.
Due for a service?
Kenfield Auto. Kenfield Auto, the answer to all your car problems. Your service and repair specialist for your VW, Audi, Suzuki, Toyota, or just about any vehicle. Kenfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop to handle them all. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call us on 031 207 2399. Kenfield Auto.
J.Today Jamshed brings you summer clearance sale with up to 50% off on all items. Avail the most exciting offer from 23rd January to 2nd February 2025. Visit our store or shop online at ca.todayjamshed.com.
وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to the world.
اٹھو بے سہارو چلو غم کے مارو خبر یہ سناؤ حضور آ گئے ہیں حضور آ گئے 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 انوکھا نرالا وہ ذیشان آیا وہ سارے رسولوں کے سلطان آیا سلطان آیا میرے بادشاہ ہو تجھلا ہو نگاہیں جھکاؤ حضور آ گئے 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 ہوا چار سور ہے امتوں کا بسیرا اجالا اجالا سویرا 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 حلیمہ کو پہنچی.
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Al-Ansar, Durban 90.4 and Petermarisburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sacoor. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday, Radio Al-Ansar, keeping you informed.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Petermarisburg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news break, we were chatting briefly with Councillor Ernest Smith, Ward Councillor of Ward 27, on an update on the plan for eThekwini to improve service delivery for 2025. Most of our residents, our ratepayers, are hopeful that they will see some light at the end of the tunnel, but it looks like it's a far-fetched promise or a dream. we're going to start unpacking exactly what do we understand by service delivery. The reason why I'm stressing on this point is because some action has to be taken to improve service delivery. But before we started the third session, the nasheed that was being read by the Haqqani brothers, they were talking about the esteemed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we know the night of Miraj is around the corner. And the trip that Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam had to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be discussed. So it is imperative that we sort of believe that Allah is a doer of everything, and we need to make du'as, because we're residents of this country and indeed this municipality, and we have to monitor the situation and hold the powers of be accountable and work towards improving service delivery. Because if we just lift up our hands and say we're fed up of the situation, then what are we paying service charges for? So come 2026, I think we need to mobilize our ratepayer associations. I'm stressing this subject. I'm dealing with it quite incessantly in the last 6 months, is to create that awareness amongst our communities that you've got a role to play. You can't sit back and do nothing. You need to do a critical analysis of the wards and the residents of those wards, and to check how we can make a difference in the political representation in the municipality, rather than allowing people that cannot deliver to be part of the municipality. And that's exactly what's taking place. And this doesn't only apply to eThekwini, it applies to other municipalities. So I want to bring back Councillor Ernest Smith. Ernest, before the news break, you mentioned that, there's more negatives than positives. And I know you're not afraid, but it's very important we start unpacking. Now, I know in every municipality, come the new year, the first meeting of the portfolio committees and then thereafter Exco, there's a bit of an analysis done on the prior year's performance. And I know whether they deserve or not, a lot of these officials are claiming performance bonuses, but I know the oppositions are saying these guys, they don't even deserve the salary, leave the bonuses as well. But going forward, I know you all had your first session of meetings, and Exco met, and I'm not sure whether the council met, but is there a plan to really, not necessarily improve, but look back on the weaknesses or the poor service delivery of the past, and what steps are going to be taken? I know there are demands for improvement in water services, electricity services, and our luck, for the last 9 months, we didn't have load shedding for whatever reason. And in my program, we predicted that this is all a myth, and it would, like COVID, it'll come out in the wash. So from your perspective, being a councillor in the Human Settlements Portfolio Committee, attending council meetings, what can you inform before we unpack what is service delivery? Our residents that, you doubt whether there's a plan, or there is a plan, let's hope we can do something about the plan.
Well, let me unpack it first before I get to the plans and the plans. Service delivery can be described as to the roads you drive on, the fixing, maintenance thereof, electricity that you get, the electricity that you get to your house, the water, obviously the billing system, that the tree trimming, the grass maintenance, the island, the verges, everything that impacts you directly, obviously, well, not air, but everything that is within the eThekwini realm, and everything I've mentioned is basically what people would see as, what can I see? Can I see the water, the electricity? Is the place looking neat? Is the road getting fixed on time? Or those kinds of things. Am I being built correctly? Trees, trimming, the rest of it. There are obviously different parts to it, but and I'm just literally summarizing it. But you asked me the important question: is there a plan? I'm going to say, at this point, I'm 70-30. 70 against and 30 for, because, and I'll tell you why. Solely for my committee, we have not sat for January yet. Human settlements and trading services, remember, split, and I sit in trading services, which obviously deals with water, electricity.
So you're in the third week and you'll haven't had a meeting?
No, we got. Just for a matter of information, we actually have we have a calendar that's approved at the end of every year for the next year to say, this is when you guys are sitting. Do you have a problem?
So you'll meet once a month?
Yes, supposed to, at least. And trading services was not booked for January. It was only booked for February, 19th of Feb, mid
So
of
they're
Feb.
going for a lengthy leave.
Yeah, looks like. And suddenly we get a notification to say today, oh, by the way, we've got items from a specific unit that need to be dealt with. And there's supposed to be 7 days notice. That hasn't been fulfilled. We get being told that obviously certain days, particularly for a ward councillor like myself, we have our week. So we literally a week and a half booked up in advance. So you tell me, if a municipality was serious, especially from a trading services point of view, about giving services to the residents, why would you wait until the first week of February, or so the middle of February, before you actually start doing your analysis for the next 8 months? Because essentially you knock off January, you knock off December, that's 2 months, and we know people start slowing down in November. So at the end of the day, you've got 8, maybe 9 months that you're going to deal with. So I don't trust as of today, I don't trust what's being sent to me half the time. And it's particularly when we're having our water outages and you're getting next to no feedback, and I'm requesting it, and there's next to no feedback. You have the Puntons Hill area, which goes off every other day of the week, no information there. The residents start saying to you, well, listen, why are we the butt end of the world? We're not getting the services we pay for. And we're not getting the general services. So, those are the challenges we deal with. But I don't trust a large amount of officials at this point. And you mentioned not the building inspector, not the RDP, the housing unit. The very fact that you have them refusing to come out and meet with residents, and residents who demanded it, and it's rate-based associations, CPFs, the like, and they actively refuse. It's not a case of saying, no, we won't come. But in this case, it was a case of, no, we won't come because it's not the time for it yet. Actually, any official, once they are called to come to a public meeting, must attend. So over the last year and a bit, I've started to distrust a lot of officials, but not all of them.
So what you're saying, Ernest, is 70-30, people don't know what's happening. I want to bring in our economist, asset manager, Hassan. Hassan, in the municipality, the financial year runs from July to June. So July 2024 was the beginning of the financial year end. June 25 is the end of the financial year end. Are you aware of it?
I am aware.
Right. Now, I know financial year ends vary depending.
Majority of them in South Africa, generally, it's February is most personal tax year ends.
Now, the municipality, for some reason, they like to have it from July to June. Sure. So, which means we're 6 months into the financial situation in the municipality. So, they have 6 months left to spend their budget. Now, in brief, I know you more in the commercial sector than the municipal sector. They're going to spend their budget based on what's approved. But they have what we call an adjustment in budget that takes place around January or February for sections or departments that cannot spend their annual budget. So the budget is prepared before the year end by the chief financial officer, and he would then consult with the various departments, prepare the budget, have budget hearings. We spoke about this in prior meetings. And whether they listen to the public or not is another question. And those budgets are approved by predominantly the political party. And the bias is towards the areas that have the most councillors, etc. Now, the situation is that Ernest mentioned that we're into end of January and you got 5 months left. And if you don't spend your budget, you snooze, you lose, they call the concept. So if you've got a budget of 100 million for the year and you spend 30 million, if you don't transfer that money to another department that requires that funds, you lose it. And if you get grants from Treasury or from National Department, that's taken back if you don't spend. Now, that capital budget that national departments give to the municipalities, it is imperative that they have a plan of action in prior years as to how they're going to use that. If it's an infrastructure budget, we're going to invest it on infrastructure. And then also, those departments that are highly capital, like human settlements, they've got to plan in advance for developments. And Ernest has been talking about the kind of meetings that are required to take place. Now, because I was in that space, I understand exactly the ramifications of these meetings not taking place, because you're not going to get buy-in. Now, from a fiscal discipline point of view and from a financial perspective, you, me, Ernest, as ratepayers, we're contributing our rates. It's deducted every month. We get our bill. Whether those bills are legit or not is another question. Sometimes people get bills of 27,000, 30,000, and when they're expecting 7,000 and 8,000. And that SARS also hits you with high charges for taxes for everything you earn. So people are paying more taxes than, what disposable income they have. So as far as government is concerned, more so municipalities, Hassan, fiscal discipline is lacking. And National Treasury, and the Auditor General have spelled out ramifications. So from a financial perspective, I want you to unpack that, what are the effective ramifications of the situation we face in most municipalities, that they have qualified audit reports, they are not spending their budgets, there's a lot of maladministration. So when the people are complaining and saying that the funds we contribute towards the fiscus of the city, we're not getting anything in return or minimal in return, like Ernest just spoke about the roads being in a bad condition. In terms of schooling, we got problems, although some of it are government subsidized functions. But if you take verge cutting, as and when they get guys, they cut the verges, otherwise there's bushes all over the place. And then you talk about, infrastructure maintenance. Stormwater drains are not being, effectively maintained. And then the host of other functions that the municipality expects to carry out, for example, in the treasury, the billing function. Now, those bills are not monitored and people are landed with huge bills. And when they go, there's no competent officials to help them. So from a fiscal point of view, what are the ramifications from your perspective in terms of, the Auditor General's report and how should people react? What should they demand from the municipalities?
Sure. To give you an example, you've had last week, the city of Swanee got issued a qualified audit opinion by the Auditor General.
And what was the main reason for that?
And the main reason, again, is being around issues around unauthorized expenditure.
Okay.
Give you an example. In their case, unauthorized expenditure went from 1.9 billion in the previous year to 2.3 billion this year.
Now, I want to stop you there. What do you mean by unauthorized expenditure?
Irregular expenditure. Irregular expenditure.
In other words, they didn't have authority to spend.
No authority, no idea what it was spent on, no proper documentation, nothing.
So there was mismanagement on the part of all departments.
All departments and obviously the officials that are involved in it. At the end of the day, somebody has to authorize payments.
Right.
The person who's authorizing it, anybody that authorizes, in the normal, you and I know, as households, when we have to pay our, for example, let's look at husband and wife, we have a budget. The husband says, and our wife together, okay, 10,000 rand, we have to spend on
for all your stop orders.
For stop, whatever it is,
right.
You have that there. Now, for each one, you're going to get a bill. So whether it's your rates and taxes, you'll get a bill from the metro.
Your insurance,
you'll get your debit, your medical aid.
There's so you got about 6 or 7 debit orders.
6 or 7
so
debit
you must have
orders,
funding to meet those costs.
100%. So that from your salary or whatever other business you're in, your money will be, whatever, you put your money into your account, make sure that there's sufficient money to spend. But you've got proof of everything that you had to pay for. Whether it's medical aid, rates and taxes, food at ShopRite or, a spa, whoever it is, you've got basically, in these cases, you've got many, and it happens in eThekwini, we've seen it and in other municipalities as well. There's been a systemic amount of irregular and authorized and unauthorized expenditure. And it's now been happening for a number of years.
So there's no fiscal discipline.
No fiscal discipline.
So if, for example, there's a budget of 100,000 and they spend 200,000, the CFO should stop that spending because don't even allow the 100%. Award of the contract to that amount because there must be a control and process in place before that spend is made.
100%. For example,
so all the sections and rules are being violated.
Completely.
And there's a group of people that are just allowing it to take place.
We saw, was it last week, that the Minister of Infrastructure fired there was an official that had authorized 1.2 billion
that was in
rands.
KZN.
In KZN, 1.2 billion rands towards one company for 27 or 29 tenders. One company.
And this fellow happened to be a prisoner. He was a prisoner charged for some serious crime.
Exactly. Yeah, apparently it was for murder.
Yes.
For murder. Somebody was...
And he was out on parole or something.
And he is a senior official being paid...
Head of a department.
Head of a department paying in excess of R1 million being paid. And He's just handing out to somebody that's obviously connected, and they will benefit from the kickbacks or whatever that comes in from that.
And some years later, they picked this criminal offense, and now they fired him, but also criminal charges can take years to sort out.
So that is the issue. The issue is the unfortunate rot that is in many of the municipalities across the country, including ours, that there are many individuals in there that do not have the expertise, that unfortunately are involved actively in corruption, and that has led to the various forms of mafias that we have seen flourish in across the country over the last few years. We started off with the construction mafia. Then it evolved, it went into the electricity with Eskom and the like, and we saw that. And more recently now, it's the water mafia. Give you an example. Malaysia, a couple weeks back, they had an issue in terms of water. There was a mosque, and there was another area that arranged for 2 tankers going around and made people collect from the mosque to come and collect water. What happened? 2 days later, the people at the mosque got a call from the water mafia. If you do not stop doing what you're doing, lives will be lost.
So people's lives are being threatened.
And that's the unfortunate thing, is that there is this brazen approach by many of them.
So what you're saying, Hassan, there's scant respect for the budgets.
Scant respect for the budgets, scant respect for the law. That's the issue. Now the budget is, in many cases, I think we have had some improvements year on year in terms of qualified audits reducing year on year. If you look at the last one we spoke about a couple of months back, we have had some, but big municipalities are still a big issue. Swani is a big municipality. Joburg is an absolute disaster. Is a disaster.
Correct.
And that's the biggest risk and concern for me and for many South Africans, is that Joburg, being the heartland and the economic powerhouse of this country, is in dire straits. That municipality, financially speaking, is in big problems. And that's the challenge we face, is that how can the economic heart of the country be in such a dire state? It's because of the officials that are managing it. And you have to have a restructure there. There has to be change in management, change in officials, and you have to put in some proper control. Either you collapse the administration and put it into rescue and then try and sort it out, or you have to really change and put in new officials in there. But unfortunately, politics is playing that's the unfortunate thing.
Now, Hassan, in a nutshell, there's no fiscal discipline in most municipalities. Some municipalities do follow the budget procedures, and they ensure that spend takes place according to the budget. The correct policy and procedures are in place. The SEM procedures are being followed. And when the budgets are prepared, it's prioritized on the necessities and requirements in the different wards based on the need. For example, if road rehabilitation in a particular ward is the order of the day and there's a crisis there, then the roads department would make a request to the CFO that we need 100 million to rehabilitate the roads because the ratepayers are up in arms and the roads cannot be patched up anymore. It needs to be resurfaced. And the cycle of 10 years rehabilitation has passed. It's already 15 years. So we need X amount per road in the 20 roads in that particular ward, and that's a budget we need. Now, for officials to spend and prioritize the budgets according to the need, if that discipline is followed, then there wouldn't be, abuse of the fiscus. But at the moment, you quoted Gauteng, you quoted Johannesburg, you quoted Swane, and Swane now is talking about the Residents' Praise Action SA, EFF and ANC coalition for improved service delivery because the DA mayor was removed. And when the DA mayor was there, he says that I had a plan of action to comply with what I'm just saying. But because these guys took the money and started to improve roads in certain areas, people are seeing service delivery, but this is biased towards certain areas. So, and the other areas are being left out. So it becomes a political minefield where people are politicking to do. Whereas in the past, there was a budget in place, and according to the budget, the spend was taking place. And if a particular area didn't have the budget, then the council must start prioritizing budgets in those areas, and the residents must be told the money will come up, or go for an adjustment budget, which means in January, if a particular ward hasn't spent or particular department hasn't spent, then transfer the money to that, and then you can use that budget the next year to sort out another area. So from a financial perspective, can we broadly say, based on the audit reports, that 75% or more of our municipalities do not have any fiscal discipline?
That's correct. I think the big issue is that, look, slowly, I think there is certain improvements in some municipalities across the country, but by and large, a significant portion of the municipalities across the country, fiscal discipline is lacking. To put it into perspective, if you look at the amount of money that's owed to ESCOM by municipalities, and
it's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. One of the big reasons ESCOM is huge amount. It's about close to 100 billion rands, if not more. And that has evolved, exploded over the last 10 years. And that's because of the fiscal. Second issue is that historically, municipalities were very good in terms of collections. If you look at eThekwini historically and the like, very good, 95% plus collection rates you had. Now you've seen in many big municipalities across the country and the like, it's dropped to 80, 85%. Now, when you're dropping your revenues, 80, 85% is a big impact. And the problem is the culture of entitlement and the culture of non-payment is an issue. It's an issue. And, then when you say, okay, let's just write off the debt. So people say, well, it's easy. Let's not pay. The debt will be written off in a few years' time. We carry on.
Those people are being prejudiced.
Now, for example, we talked about last week how one of the very efficient departments within municipalities is the one that cuts off the lights. But it's for people, it's in certain areas. What happens also, you find that in many other townships or areas as well, where it gets cut off, within a few days, because of corrupt officials, it's reconnected again. It
takes months to go back there.
Correct. So not because the guy has paid off his debt, it's because he paid off a corrupt official. Here's 1,000 rand or whatever it is.
But what about the illegal connection of electricity and water, which they pick up years later?
That's huge amount.
Now, in summary, and I want to bring Ernest in here, Hassan, because I think you just gave a bit of a synopsis of what's going on. Ernest, our ratepayers and residents who are listening to us saying that we're not getting value for money. We have debit orders against our electricity account. It's called a consolidated bill. And in the consolidated bill, there's a debit of 10 or 15 grand per month to take care of your electricity and water charges and your rates. Okay, there are some concessions for properties under 2 million or under 3 million, whatever the value is, and the person must be over 60. But ultimately, people are now budgeting to meet those expenses. And they're asking the question to you as a ward councillor in every meeting that you will probably attend, that I'm paying, the high value properties, I'm paying 1,500, 2,500 rates every month. And what are you giving me in return? You're not even cutting my verges. My street lights are not working. My roads are in an appalling state. Our libraries are ineffective. What am I paying that money for? Our stormwater drains are blocked. Our parks are not maintained. So all the municipal functions are totally ineffective. Some of my money is being used to subsidize housing development. That's not taking place. There's a huge wastage of water. There's illegal connections of electricity. And the list goes on. So you as a ward councillor, you're getting these queries coming through because the residents of Ward 27 appointed you as a ward councillor, and they're saying, Ernest, you'll make a difference. And you said, my party wants to make a difference. But my hands are tied because it's not a municipality of national union or whatever, like GNU. And we got these same old buggers. So tell me, what kind of queries are you fielding from your residents when you have, or ratepayers when you have meetings? Are they raising the same queries I'm giving to you? Because they're all listening.
Yeah, no, they do. I mean, without a doubt. The simple question.
And what answer do you give them? Do you concede and say, you know what, my hands are tied, we can't do nothing? Well, because we're looking at 2026. This particular program is leading us to 2026, and we want fundamental changes. Now, we've given some kind of an indicator on the changes we require, but that changes will only come about if there's a political change. So I'm asking you the question, Ernest, as a ward councillor, that whenever you're calling your meetings with ratepayers, are they raising the same questions, or are they sick and tired that they don't want to come for the meetings, or they're saying that we're in a hopeless situation or we can do nothing about it?
I have a mix, actually. It's quite, and I don't say it funny, but I have a mix of residents. There are those residents that say we can't afford to give up, because you give up, you surrender everything, and you forfeit your power. Then you get residents who say, well, I pay my bills every month, but then, it depends on what type of resident, because you get residents who also don't, like, for example, when you submit your meters, they don't do the diligent thing. Maybe every 3 months they send their meter thing, and then they also have the meter billing problems. But then you get residents who go out swearing at you because you are the only one answering the phone. Let's be honest. They pick up and say, oh, thank God somebody answered the phone. That's actually what happened today. And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, I phoned 10 numbers and two or three of them ring off the hook, and that's not what we pay for. But in essence, the fundamental principle is that we get the government we elect. I'm sorry to say that.
Before I forget, I want to make a very important comment.
Mm-hmm.
You and everybody else source services from the private sector.
Yeah.
In terms of your cell phone account, in terms of if you need to engage with the Automobile Association for any breakdowns. And you'll find that the private sector is taking the calls.
Yeah.
Because they got efficient staff. And they got head of departments that are managing those departments effectively. For example, if you phone Automobile Association and you're stuck somewhere or you need assistance, you phone, and within 2 or 3 rings, it's picked up, an official response to your queries. Within minutes, you've got a reaction. For example, if you're stuck in a street corner and your vehicle has broken down and you phone the Automobile Association, a private organization, for which you may be paying a couple of thousand a year. But within half an hour, you'll have the services there.
Yeah.
Now, why can't we say the same about the utilities in terms of government departments, including municipalities? Because what you're paying to the municipalities is your service charges for electricity and water in terms of your billing, but you're paying rates separately. So for your rates, you expect a particular degree of service charges, and for your utilities, but you're achieving very little or none. Like you said, the resident phoned in and he said, listen, my debit order is going through. I phoned somebody, I got a query. I never submit my reading, but I'm paying an estimated bill. And some of these meter readers don't even read my water meter, and they incorrectly read it, and I get double the bill. And the disconnection guys are there.
Chop.
So now there's a fundamental difference. So it's all pointing to, number one, those politicians are there, don't have the will to hold the officials responsible for what's not taking place and take action.
Most of them, not all.
So now the comparison, later on in our program, in different programs, we're going to say, how do we fix it? But the topic for today is there a plan of action? You said 70% no plan, 30% maybe, 70% officials not working, 20% maybe, and we got a serious problem ahead of us. So now your ratepayers, coming back to the question I raised, give us an analysis of, from the time you became councillor, what is the reaction? And, you've given 2 scenarios. One, they say, okay, listen, I can't do anything. 2, I'm hopeful. 3,
you can't give up.
And what are the questions coming? Is the common reaction is what I'm bringing to the attention of our listeners, or is there any other suggestions your ratepayers and residents are saying?
Well, okay. So like I said, so I initially said there's 2 field of thoughts here, but there's actually 3. You get the people who are very despondent. I'm just paying my bills to barely surviving. A lot of the senior citizens' homes are feeling that. I encountered that obviously when distributing the senior citizens vouchers, and having met with a few of them saying, we get our 2,000 Rand grant and our rent is maybe 1,000, water's 300, electricity's this. We are battling to make ends meet. So people have to cohabitate now. But then you get the not very hopeful ones, but considering the political situation with the GNU and the like. And a lot of people have gotten the wrong understanding that because there's the GNU in effect, then the province of national unity, they think it translates to the ground. Now, what happens on the ground, there's more there's more a willingness to work together, which should have always been there, my opinion. But up until the ANC was humbled at the national elections, suddenly the different attitudes where people are yelling at you, you're racist and you know, supremacist and things, all of those comments have now suddenly died off. But having said that, there are those people that are hopeful about it and saying, mislabeling the eThekwini as, you know, a GNU, when it's not actually. At this point, until 2026, it is still a majority ANC-led municipality.
Well, that's eThekwini, and
eThekwini,
that may apply
yes.
to the bigger.
Yes, no, for sure. And
Swan, at least in KZN, you got Msinduzi, it's a disaster. Roads are like, you know, sort of,
and they're under Section 139 as well.
For a long time, and nothing's being done.
Well, that's where I was going to go with it.
Kwaduguzo is the same as other municipalities. And, you know, the politics of it, we'll chat on another program.
Sure. No, I was just going to get back to that, because there's the misconception that now it's, you know, all of us running the show, when it's not always the case. We have a large amount of influence, not large, but a fair amount. But we also have to remember that with the politics of the last 25 years, the ANC has brought in these people we're talking about, the 70%.
So the ANC is rightfully being responsible and held accountable for the state of affairs in the poor administration of the municipality.
No, hold on, let me get there. The ANC is responsible for bringing in these crooks. And I say crooks for that.
So they must be held responsible
yes,
for
exactly,
the decline.
Exactly. And if you had to...
And that resulted in the decline in votes,
yes,
which MK took advantage of, because
100%.
they were part of the process before that as
For sure. And that's what we need to do in this municipality to reach parity. Because if we don't set that here, you ask me for a plan. If the voters out there say, listen, we want to balance it across the board, give all of you equal share, so there's nobody who can really topple, then we can start saying, okay, let's work on a plan. We've actually, and by the way, there was also a middle disillusioned resident that actually disillusioned residents that actually come past and engage and say, well, some days we're happy, other days we're not. We pay our rates and taxes. Yes, we get pulled, but there are more diligent people who send their stuff through. But you know, it takes it depends. You asked me for the plan. And I'm going to go here quickly. Is that in terms of water and sanitation, we filed the motion to, you know, obviously give water its due course of finance, because the problem in this municipality is that our major service units, whether it's electricity, whether it's water, whether it's sanitation, whether it's roads, are not funded to the degree they should be. Because you cannot tell me when what was it, Neil McLeod and Mike Sutcliffe and the lot, when they had it, their budgeting process came with a backing of experience and CFOs that actually understood, hey, we have to have a balanced budget, get a 98% return in, so that we can reuse the budget and still service the debt that we actually, the borrowings that we have, because if I'm not mistaken, it's sitting at about 23 billion, 25 billion.
So what you're saying is there were efficient officials.
Yes.
These guys retired. They were replaced.
Yes.
These new officials came in, did not have the will to deliver, and there's a decline. But I want to comment on an article in Swane, and Hassan spoke about Swane, where the residents praise Action SA, EFF and ANC coalition for improved service delivery. Now they're saying that the African National Congress, and this is maybe politicking, economic freedom fighters, and Action SA coalition in Swane has been praised by residents, saying their fight against lack of service delivery is notable. The coalition, which was formed in October 2024, which is just a couple of months ago, has embarked on service delivery projects, including cleaning Swane streets, especially in the CBD, fixing roads, lights and robos, which we're hearing a lot of complaints in the eThekwini. The recent one being the people of Hammanskraal receiving clean drinking water for the first time in over 2 decades. So 20 years nobody's delivered. Which political party was in control? I suspect the ANC was involved, but they're blaming somebody, including themselves. The city was previously led by the Democratic Alliance, your party, Ernest, the DA, which residents complain about being unable to deliver services. Yet the DA is saying we delivered services in the municipalities that we are, including the Western Cape, and we don't have qualified audit reports. So somebody is saying you all haven't. Many accuse the DA had prioritized services for white communities more than black communities. So it becomes a racist thing. But be that as it may, all communities, including Africans living in other areas, have indicated that if we don't have service delivery, we're paying rates, we're paying service charges, we're not getting value for money. We're not saying we're getting no delivery, but we're getting far less than what we're paying for.
For sure.
What you have alluded to, the fact that the municipality has failed to implement a plan, and the reason for that is that there's no political will to make it happen. And you quoted that meetings are not taking place, officials are disinterested. The former mayor came in my program, and I'm saying this several times, stating that more than 50% of officials come in the morning, sign the register, and they leave in the afternoon, coming back to sign the register. They disappear in cutting deals in the site. Now, is that prevalent in eThekwini, or you don't know, or you guess it is? Because what we're going to do in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to ask our finance man to come in and say, from a financial perspective, how do we start reacting to improve fiscal discipline?
Sure.
I want him to talk on the World Economic Forum, but I'm not sure whether that will impact on our residents' concern, because I try to avoid too much of international discussions, because they'll say, in which way is this impacting on us? If it improves tourism, in which way are we going to be impacted? We want to see what we're paying for, whether we're getting for value for money, and that constitutes 90% of the people that are listening.
Exactly.
So, Ernest, on your side, you say there's no plan. Your residents are complaining to you. We spoke about the options in the municipality, and those options may not take place sooner rather than later. How do we react until we can make a fundamental change?
Well, okay, I'm going to just go back to the first part. The funny thing about service delivery is that when you put a plan in place, I mean, we sat last year in the water department at a presentation saying we know the problems and that they quantified more or less the value they think.
They presented that to a workshop or council?
It was no, it was a workshop to us as a committee. Or no, it was that last year or the year before. I'm kind of still stuck in 2023. And obviously the premise of service delivery and the what do you call this? You don't want to pay fees. You don't want to pay your rates and taxes. The rates boycott is based around around the idea that we don't receive it. I don't advocate for the rates boycott, and I'll tell you why. Because in a rates boycott, you have to prove that for majority of a month, you are not receiving your services and you are still paying your normal charges. However, that doesn't mean that residents can't be upset about it. They would have to identify, and I don't want to use my case, but somebody who is proactive to say, listen, let's collate these issues, and we hammer on somebody's door. Because as it stands at the moment, I'm dealing with all acting officials from a particular department, because their head is now acting DCM, and this one's here, and this one's gone to
There's all actors and there's no real
that's it. So no decision makers. And the problem with that is simple, is that when you have a whole bunch of people who are acting in something, then they're a lot more unwilling to take decisions that are hard, fast, and there. Same thing happened with my Puntins Hill issue with the water. Some people had to get a hold of Mgeni Water to find out why their pumps have gone down. Now people are puzzling around trying to understand. The reality of it is, until that we as the ratepayers and residents of the municipality can go to the polls and say, bugger the lot of you, we're giving you all equal power. Because I'm going to say this out while we're talking about Action SA and the like, and it boils down to my comment. The thing about service delivery is when there's political willpower to do it, you have to start going through your departments. You have to start doing the vetting of skills. You have to start saying, present an adequate plan. Otherwise, you're incapable, and we're going to put somebody who's capable here, and you can present it within the next...
Will that happen? The answer is no.
Not immediately.
Correct.
Not immediately. But that's the thing, and I'm not politicking by any chance. But the thing is, when you have a political party doing that, skills audit, lifestyle audit, suddenly when workers realize they can't be taking the checks in the back and the cash in their hand, and because how can you afford that 5 million rand Mercedes or whatever it is? Suddenly, then their questions get asked, and you start catching people out.
And when they catch people out, there's no action being taken.
That's because of the political willpower. I don't want to say we would do it, but essentially we would. And the reality is, results come, like the same thing what happened to Mgeni. It took a full year of auditing, I don't say pushing people aside, but getting the right people in the right places to do the right thing with the budgets they have. Essentially, it is not a complex plan. It is essentially appease your ratepayers, make sure that they're getting their services, their bang for their buck, the roads, the water, the lights, the tree trimming, the verges, and then whatever excess is, service your debt so we have a lot more hand in. Okay, I'll speak about it competitively.
So this is a nice to have.
Yes,
this
but this should be done. But that is what I'm saying. It ties into what we say, to say when you go to the polls, you need to think about it from an economic perspective.
Now, we'll come back to that quickly. I want to bring in Hassan. Hassan, the World Economic Forum conference is taking place. Your president, Ramaphosa, our president, made some statements, but your GNU is supporting him. and John Steers, your leader, is there also, and he's making some big statements as well. Some salient points that came out from a South African perspective.
Sure.
That will benefit from the World Economic Forum, because he went there with a few of his ministers, including John Steers and the Minister of Finance, etc. In 2 minutes, what are the salient points and important points coming out from a South African perspective before we close up our discussion?
I think his key comments were quite high level and more from a global perspective. He talked a lot about, the green economy. He talked about those are things. I think some of the things were just too high level.
Exports, etc.
Just a couple of one or two key things. So South Africa is going to be the first African country to sit in the G20 and hold the presidency for this year. Secondly, South Africa will be hosting the G20 in November of this year in Johannesburg. It's an important event. It's a big event. It's an important event. You're getting the biggest and most prominent and powerful countries in the world will be coming to our shores
getting back into the
in
world
November.
map.
So it's an important point. It's an important event. It's an event for us to again showcase, particularly Johannesburg, which was a big issue at this point in time, but to showcase our country and showcase Johannesburg and show that
Before you complete, because I'm running out of time, I'm going to come back to you.
Yeah.
I need to acknowledge the people listening on Facebook and YouTube, and I'm not sure our technician will tell us, are there many people listening on Facebook and YouTube, and also others that are listening? Continue listening, because we got another 10 minutes to wrap up. Go ahead, Hassan.
Sure. I think so. From that perspective, it's important because it highlights, and he stressed on those points, and he stressed around the fact that we're in an environment now where globally people have to work together. I think more importantly was the finance minister, Gonongwana. He spoke a lot around South Africa and he sees it going forward. First and most importantly, our debt.
Mm-hmm.
So he talked about our debt. Remember, from 2020, we went into what is called junk status. So junk status means basically the rate and the ability to borrow globally becomes a lot more expensive when you go into junk. So, for example, to put it into easy terms for people to understand, when we go to the bank and we want to borrow, we have some form of security, and we have this. The bank will give us a favorable rate, say 10%. But if we go to the bank and the bank says, "Hey, this person got a bad track record, is a high risk," he charges you 15%. Similarly with countries. So similarly with South Africa, we were borrowing very competitively prior to 2020. After having moved to junk status, our cost of borrowing had picked up as well. So he talked a lot about that. Over the next 2 years, he wants South Africa, the finance minister, he says, steering South Africa moving back into investment grade status. So, which is a good thing. How he intends doing that? Firstly, structural reforms. So structural reforms, we've seen slowly with the new GNU and the like, there are areas of focus in terms of getting things right, whether it's infrastructure, but two key things he highlighted. Telecommunications and logistics. So telecommunications, they want, and there's an important point is that, remember, people now, there's no more fixed line, or fixed line is very rarely used. Everybody's using the mobile phones, or you using your laptops. The key though is to get access to Wi-Fi or internet for majority of the country and to be competitively priced. That is an important point. And I think the intention is to try and focus on that over the next few years, is to get effective telecommunications across the country. Secondly, logistics. The biggest hindrance to our growth over the last number of years, firstly, we had the load shedding issue, but that now is on track, and it seems to be 300 days now we haven't had load shedding. So we're actually making good progress in that front there. But is the logistics around rail, ports, and road. Road has obviously been, one of the big reasons our roads are so much under pressure is because the inefficient rail infrastructure has led to so much of goods being transported on roads. I mean, you talk about just the drive from Pietermaritzburg to Durban is a nightmare these days, an absolute nightmare. Firstly, because of the amount of construction work, but the amount of trucks that are on the road that you see that creates the challenges around that. Now, if your rail infrastructure improves, it creates a more efficient logistics and more exports takes place out of the country, more imports come into the country. But both ways it works. And that's an important. Secondly, also with the ports, to improve the port system, get a lot more efficient and get a lot more containers and the like going out and coming into the country. So more trade can happen, our growth can improve as well. That's the other area he focused on. The one area and there's a couple of key issues though that he's concerned about, and I think he didn't highlight it, but you can see behind the lines. Government public sector has been pushing for 12% wage increases in this last couple of months. They came down. Government was holding out at 3%. Then they went up to 4.5%. Then they went to 5%. Now I see as of yesterday, they've given a final offer of 5.5%. But the fact of the matter is 5.5%, and which looks like the unions are going to accept that. But the thing is,
inflation.
It's above inflation. So inflation, if you look at the number that came out today, it was 3%.
Yes.
For 5%, okay, even if you say for the full year of last year was 4.4%, still 5.5% is above inflation as well.
Additional cost to the taxpayer.
The issue, there is more cost to the taxpayer and more cost to the budget. So if you look at, for example, when he announces again the budget now in February next month, he's going to have to take into account this, because when he talked about the midterm budget in October, they were not factoring in a 5.5% increase.
And this has a huge impact.
It has a huge impact on the fiscus. That means
and the fact that these guys are not delivering, that's another problem.
That's an issue. So debt remains one of the big concerns for the country. To put into perspective, debt is currently at 72% of GDP, having come from 40% not too long ago.
So
that's massive, almost double. In ordinary man's terms, I'll look at it, a country that has over 60 million people, that works out to 200,000 rand per person. So imagine you not even know, but you unknowingly, you actually, as an individual in this country, you're owing creditors 200,000 rands per person. That's a huge amount of money. That's 13 trillion rands.
So the salary bill of the government sector, local government sector, is phenomenal.
That is the issue.
That's having a serious impact on service
we
delivery.
just look at eThekwini. You've got whether it's the city manager and many other high-ranking officials that are paid 2 million, 3, whatever it may be. They're paid phenomenal figures. Are they getting paid for what they're doing? And the answer, I think most of us across this table can say, no. They're not doing what they're being paid for.
It's quite enormous in the budget, and obviously you're not getting return of services for the
There
budget.
are many of the older officials that have been like yourself, Yunus, you retired, but there's still many of those officials that are in their late 50s or 60s that are there and approaching retirement.
Most of those officials are at sort of middle management level, and they're being stifled if you
They're being
meet them.
stifled.
Because if you look at the reports that are coming through on the sort of senior management posts, 99% are African. Now, nobody is against it. But if you're refusing to appoint competent professional people into those positions, and I've read an article where for the last 12 months, there's been minimal. In the last 2 months, there's been 100% black appointments. So there's reverse discrimination, and this is unacceptable.
Again, that is an issue. That is a big issue. It's not representative of the province. If you look, as you talk, it's not representative of the province.
It's a question of if they're competent, and when we spoke about affirmative action many months ago, it was to redress the imbalances of the past. Now there is a reverse discrimination, but on the other side of it, there's little or no delivery, and that is serious concern. So from a fiscus point of view, just to sum up, Hassan, we got a serious financial problem in all municipalities.
We got the municipalities, especially some of the big ones, Shwane, eThekwini and the like, there are big challenges, big issues. Remember, there's only so much you can push increases in terms of rates and taxes and the like. People are paying, but people are under pressure. People are under pressure. We've come through a couple of tough years. People are feeling it, and slowly there's some improvements coming through, but things are still tough. You've had inflation now has only sort of eased off in the past year, but people are finding. Now, if you continue to maintain a bloated and inefficient cost structure, and you're not delivering on goods and services that's required, it's going to blow up. It is going to blow up. Now, you've talked about Mike Sutcliffe and trying to get the report out. And we haven't seen nothing as yet, unfortunately.
Well, listen, both Mike Sutcliffe and that committee from government headed by Mike Mabuyakulu, nothing's come of it, and it's 1 year gone.
Correct.
Mike has indicated he submitted the report, but there's no action because there's no political will to action what he's recommended.
That's the
Now,
issue.
it's a confidential report, and Ernest hasn't seen it yet, but I think very important to note is that he's submitting a report how to improve the service delivery in eThekwini.
Correct.
And how to deal with the consequences and those recommendations that he probably would have, knowing Mike. These guys said, Icona, because politically it's going to affect us.
That's the issue.
So I'm going to ask Ernest, Hassan, maybe you just want to conclude with your last few comments.
I think last point is, so there are good things happening in the country, but there are also very challenging things. The good things is there is improvement in many areas. Tourism is picking up. You're seeing certain areas of the economy. The retailers are had a relatively good December. Mr. Price came out today with very good updates in terms of the quarter to December. You've seen the food retailers, the likes of ShopRite. So there's some good areas. The tough areas, though, the manufacturing, the industrial areas, they're tough. ArcelorMittal Steel looking to close the Vereniging plant and Newcastle plant. Remember, Newcastle, Vereniging, those towns, and they've relied on those big plants because there's a related industry that relies on that. So it's not only the people that's employed
there,
but it's the services that supplies around that, the related impact. It's a big impact. And if they close that down, it impacts the auto sector. It impacts the services industries around it. It's a big issue. For example, Toyota and the like I said I'm pleading with government and ArcelorMittal. Worst case, give it at least 12 months and then do that. But just ArcelorMittal wants to do it end of January, which is next week.
Isn't ArcelorMittal an Indian company?
Lakshmi Mittal, he's after Arcelor, which is now European based, but you're right, is the IDC is the second biggest shareholder. The second biggest shareholder is the Industrial Development Corporation of South Africa. They're the biggest other. So they're trying to push and trying to see if they can salvage this and try and, worst case, delay it. Best case, at least give some incentives or try and do something.
So there are concerns.
So it's a big concern. So there are financial concerns within, especially your manufacturing and industrial sectors. One last concern. We had the inauguration of the whoever we want to call him, but we had the inauguration that took place recently. He's already, if you looked at what he did in his first day,
14 bills.
The amount of bills and executive orders.
Showing his signature and throwing it, and saying
he did,
Biden must be thrown into
in that first. But he did for example, climate change, the Paris climate change, they're out of it. World Health Organization, he's signing them out of that.
Thing, the male-female thing.
In his today, or was it yesterday? He said,
got rid of this transgender rubbish and what have you.
Yesterday or today, he talked about imposing 10% tariffs on China. That is a concern. Because if he imposes 10% on imports from China, China will do tit for tat, but the related impact is countries like us will be impacted. So we must just be wary and be cautious around what can happen in the Trump presidency, especially over the next 6 to 12 months.
Well, Trump has stated one important statement that during his reign of office in the last presidency, there was no war that took place under his control. Now, the ceasefire was supported, and he then mentioned what Lubna was saying, that he doesn't know whether Israel will keep their side of the bargain. Whether he's making statements pro-Israel, but behind the scenes, he's telling them, catch a wake-up call. Time will tell us what's happening.
The only thing I'm concerned about...
So he needs to release Imran Khan from Pakistan. Yes. So he needs to stop all the wars.
Yes.
And
I mean, look,
he needs to basically get Afia Siddiqui out of that prison that she's been stuck for
And
so
the
long.
sad part was that Biden signed all his families, 4 or 5 family members, he gave them pardon on that day. And there was a petition and this thing for asking
And he refused to sign
refused
it off. And he said Trump must decide whether he wants to get her
Trump
out.
must decide.
So she needs to make strong duas. The people make duas.
Inshallah.
Because she's going through a difficult time.
Really?
But Ernest, we ran out of time as usual. We're 15 minutes out and we're making up of our lost time. You mentioned that, it's a difficult situation we're facing, particularly in the municipalities. A lot of people tell you that we're happy that we had lights on for so long. We're happy that we can open our taps and have water at least. I drink the tap water. To me, it's no problem. This bottled water is not as good as tap water, I must say that. But others say no. But be that as it may, there are some goods that are coming out of the municipality, and that is historically what was taking place. But there's a lot of improvement needed. There's have to be political change. The opportunity is there for the people to start mobilizing now towards 2026.
Yep.
You have 110 wards. Am I right?
And now apparently it's 111 with the possibility of it being another one added.
Okay, so 112 wards, 2026. I'm not sure how many wards are ICW, predominantly Indian colored white, because informal settlements go into these wards and they, inflate the numbers. But mobilization need to take place so that you have adequate representation at a political level to start demanding changes in the way the municipality runs. So we're going to go through a series of programs going forward to deal with these issues, how ratepayer associations can mobilize, because action is required rather than just being passive and taking what you get and doing nothing about the rot that's taking place. So what's the way forward in 3 minutes on your side? I know we'll have you back in future meetings or future shows, but I always leave you with a difficult question in the end.
What's the way forward?
That do you have 2 or 3 recommendations that we can have some hope to our residents and ratepayers that, listen, we're seeing some light going forward, because we talk about it, but they're saying no sense talking about the negatives, but nothing can be done. And these oaks are there and they're going to continue to be there, because I know we have a new mayor in the name of Cyril Kaaba. The NEC met, they want to make changes in the political leadership, but their changes are around political change.
Not around what's best for the people.
There should be changes around service delivery.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, what are the positives and how do you see the situation going forward? And what is the advice to our listeners and ratepayers that persevere towards 2026, be active, ask for demand for service delivery? What is your recommendation?
Well, the first thing that I would recommend to everybody listening is that whether you're part of a ratepayers association and the like, work with your local representative. I'm not saying don't work against them, but in the same breath, hold them accountable. By all means, you're welcome to do that, but work with them, because as you see various movements across the city who want to make certain spaces their own municipality and the like and what I don't think enough engagement has been done around those things. I'm talking about in the community itself, and people should not be putting false expectations out there to residents. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is there's always light at the end of the tunnel. All right. If we look at the services we have now, our water is still more on than off. Our electricity is still more on than off. So the rates boycott issue at this point is not to say null and void, but until we get to a point where we're only getting 33% of our services and we're off for 66% at the time, that to go to court about that is a long haul. So work with the structures you have, rally around and I won't say political leaders, but around your community leaders, and use the mechanisms in place to speak and drive the issues. If you do not believe the issues are being driven in committee, request your public representative to take you to the meetings. Request them to bring officials to the ward, so you as a resident can speak to Joe Soap from housing or electricity or water or the roads and say, actually, she called us here because you people won't reply to us. And the third thing I would say is that engage in a constructive fashion. You were speaking about it, the water tanker mafias and the like. We as public representatives are not exempt from death threats. We get them. I have gotten them in the last 5-6 years I've been here. I've gotten numerous ones. People wanting to burn my car, march, shoot, whatever. Well, let's work together in a constructive fashion. It's fine to be upset with the system, but work with the people that are there. Because at the end of the day, when someone like me, I meet with various sects of the community, small meetings, sometimes large meetings, and I say, like, for example, the CIP, what do the community want? You want your fences, your parks fenced off? We can do it through the 3 million, but it won't happen immediately. It's the same thing I said earlier. The planning takes time. And sometimes, as what we saw in Joburg, and I'm going to have to touch on that, as what we saw in Joburg, a ground plan was set and the results were as a result of what the planning was. You have opportunists who will play on so many things. They will say Ernest is useless. They will say Ernest is not doing his job. But the reality is, you as a resident need to engage Ernest and say, well, Ernest, what have you done? As a person to person, give me your 5 minutes of your time. Let's talk about it. Or better yet, come and speak to 20 of us and we'll give you that half an hour. Instead of judging people on that basis, because I've probably had 5 or 6 meetings where people said, we didn't know all of this. And I said, well, you need to get into a platform of communication like what we've done now for our ward. Community group, it goes out to 2,000 people. This is what we've done. This is where we're sitting, and be engaging in a constructive fashion. Because if we don't work together, and if we don't hold those, number one, those politicians who are corrupt, those ones who are not thinking about us, they're thinking about their salary at the end of the month, they are part and parcel of why we have the issues in the municipality, if not a large reason, because those people have promised comrades their jobs who are useless as hell, and we need to get them out. The only way we're going to get them out is simple. If we elect a new government, as what we did this year, force them to work together and say what is best for us, not what is best for our pockets. I'm a politician. I'm put there by the people, and the people can take me out in the next round. And that is, we must remember, that is our power.
Ernest summed it up appropriately, that you need to work with your ward councillor, you need to work with the ratepayer associations in that ward, you need to look at which political party that particular councillor represents and what effect that political party has in the biggest scheme in the municipality, because who's effective. There is bias towards certain political parties that are in control, and this is why you find service delivery in certain areas being more intense and better than other areas, because some of the powers of be clearly indicate that, listen, you didn't vote us into power, so you wait in the queue. So here's an opportunity for people to start mobilizing from now in preparation for 2026, because like you have the GNU Provincial of National Unity, it's likely 2026 you're going to have a combination of parties working together to improve service delivery, because those positions that have been going to be up for grabs, those people that are holding political positions will play an important part in appointing the mayor, etc. So you can't have 3 politicians or councillors appointed as independents or belonging to a particular party that could have an impact. They may have a slight impact, but you need to mobilize. And then further, you need to work with your ratepayer associations, meet with the mayors and the responsible politicians and officials from the department, prioritizing your service delivery needs, from crime to electricity, stormwater, roads, and look at the budgets that are there for the rest of the year and whether those departments can deliver. So there's a lot to be done. We will unpack these sessions in future programs. We ran out of time today. We had a financial perspective of what's happening. We also had, hands-on report from Councillor Ernest, who has been very frank of the situation. There are some cause for concerns, and there's a lot of work still to be done. But the hope is that we must prepare for change in 2026, and there is more than a year and a half left to do that. So let's mobilize now, and let's not sit back and say, the country is in a mess and we can do nothing. So, we're going to be party to the mess. So let's try to make that intention to make the change. From an Islamic perspective, like Gaza, Israel got kind of defeated, and they're beginning to realize we can't continue with this indiscriminate bombing. Likewise, in South Africa, if there's discrimination of any sort, we fought against it pre-apartheid. Post-apartheid, we must fight it as well. Cut down corruption and maladministration. try to improve service delivery and change the thinking of the officials that are working there, that you guys are appointed to do a piece of work and deliver. You can't simply take your salaries and backhands and enjoy your life at the expense of the majority of people, because ultimately the poor people are suffering with the lack of service delivery. The wealthy guys are somehow the other managing, but the poor are getting poorer and the rich are getting richer. We make du'as to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He assists us in enabling our leaders to lead this country more effectively and to ensure that service delivery at all levels are improved. We will continue with our programs next Wednesday, as usual, from 8 o'clock. I thank you for listening to the programs as you always do, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's live on radio, whether it's on YouTube. I thank Councillor Ernest, who has joined us. I'm sure next week he'll bring in maybe Mike McPherson or maybe Martin Mayer, because they've made some very important improvements in the province and in national. John Steenhuisen mentioned to me that pursue holding eThekwini accountable, because he remembered that he and I were together there back in the day. So he says he's going to come into my program. He's sitting there in the economic forum, but he owes me a couple of interviews, so he will come down. But we also need other politicians, the mayor, etc., to come and talk. As you said, Ernest, let's work together and improve service delivery in this country. Hassan, thanks a lot as usual for joining us. Hassan brings some positive news. He highlights some negative, the inflation rates, etc. Thanks to our technician, Mondi, for doing a fantastic piece of work. So until next Wednesday, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
जहाँ जहाँ भी गया दिल बिछाने लगे जहाँ जहाँ भी गई है मगर हमने आँखों से देखा नहीं है मगर उनकी तस्वीर सीने में मौजूद है जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया जिसने लाकर कलामे इलाही दिया वो मोहम्मद मदीने में मौजूद है फूल खिलते हैं पड़ पड़ के सल्ले अला फूल खिलते हैं पड़ पड़ के सल्ले अला झूम कर कह रही है ये बादे सबा ऐसी खुशबू चमन के गुल हमने माना कि जन्नत बहुत है हसी हमने माना कि जन्नत बहुत है हसी छोड़ कर हम मदीना न जाए कहीं यूं तो जन्नत में सब है मदीना नहीं